It is a quiet journey, and we internally will also see like acquiring a different company is a very bold move, but we did it anyway. A lot of our internal like founders are more of a YOLO type, but what our approach makes sense and also contribute to our raising result is we are blending the edge cutting like technology, but also with a very practical approach from our very early stage. Like we're able to make some contents with IPs, but also that helps us to focus on developing a lot of our internal capabilities, like on the AI front. Gaming is risky in a lot of ways, and you still need many shots on the goal to be successful. Even the best like Supercell kill, I don't know, 70% of their project in actually quite late stage.
Welcome to the Rise and Play podcast. I am Sophie Vaux, your host and leadership coach. In the show, my wonderful co-host and I sit down with influential and diverse leaders from the gaming industry to hear about their leadership journey. Not the well-polished stories, but the real stories. The up and down, the breakthrough, and the failures. Or should we rather say learnings? Each episode will transport you into a magical space of vulnerability with our guest. And together, you'll be reminded that no matter how hard it is, you are not alone in this journey, and find the courage to keep going. Come and join the ride. Let's begin. A former product leader who worked 16 years in the gaming industry, I know how difficult it is to get reliable and usable player insights. The logistics of scheduling, recruiting the right players, collecting and reviewing feedback, it is all time away from game development. But you know how fundamental it is to test assumptions with your core audience and iterate at a lower cost before marketing an unproven game. I am proud to announce Playtest Cloud as our key partner, as I have believed since day one in the quality of their service and their mission to democratize player research. Playtest Cloud can take the hassle out of organizing game research yourself and delivers results within 48 hours, allowing you to implement changes in time for your release. Having been a long-time user of the platform, it is the industry standard used by top AAA and mobile studios, and now they also support indie developers with special pricing. Working for a year on the wrong game is an expensive mistake, and you can de-risk it now by investing in your player research. Check out the show notes for a free trial and learn more about Playtest Cloud.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rise and Play podcast. This is Tiffany back again, and this episode is all about one of the hottest topics. This is Unpacking AI, finding your unique selling point in asset generation. And I have two amazing founders here from different companies that have really different strategies on how they're integrating AI into their creative process. So yeah, please welcome Burcu Hacketer and Julia John. Burcu is a seasoned gaming industry leader with over a decade of experience driving innovation and growth for game studios worldwide, now the founder of Layer AI. Previously, Unity Technologies, she spearheaded new business development initiatives that contributed to the company's successful IPO. And now, as a co-founder of Layer AI, she leads an ambitious Gen AI startup embraced by top studios like Zynga, SciPlay, Huge Games, and over 200 others to revolutionize game production. Totally amazing. I've used Layer. It's an amazing tool. And then Julia John is Chief Platform Officer at Series Entertainment, a company revolutionizing game creation through generative stories and worlds. She spent most of her time in video game production and developer platforms like Snap and Riot with over 100 million plus user base on a global scale. She used to manage League of Legends production and operations for China and helped pioneer Valorant at Riot Games. After that, she led the game's vertical and developer success at Snap, empowering third-party developers to build hyper-social gaming experiences. I am so excited to have you guys on. This is really just like raising the bar for us with some of our guests, especially with such an exciting moment for AI and games. I also have a cool new role that I can talk about. So after being in gaming for the past decade, I am still in gaming in terms of advising, doing this podcast and some board seat positions. But I've actually now moved from my full-time role into gamification for good in crowdfunding with GoFundMe. So I'm the new principal PM for a new product vertical that we're cooking up. So expect some really new things in the next quarter or so. And I'm just feeling really excited to use a lot of the gaming knowledge that I think our industry has like such a wealth of how to make products sticky, engaging, and fun, and use that around helping people get mutual aid. I think in these times, mutual aid is becoming more important than ever.
Congratulations on your next gig. It's kind of sad that we lost you in games because gaming needs more amazing women product leaders or in general leaders like you. But the cause you're going to be serving and the things that you're going to be doing will touch so many lives. So very, very exciting. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. And don't worry, I haven't totally left games, so I'm still very involved. And I am really excited to have you guys on because like I need to stay in touch with what's hip in the gaming industry. And you guys are definitely on the cutting edge. So I would love to hear more about your companies. I think with Burcu, we've been in contact for the past, I think like year and a half, ever since I was at Scopely, and I just really latched on to Layer immediately. I think is like a tool that I was using during a hackathon where we were looking at, hey, how can we build like some game assets entirely with AI? And how do we know that it's like safe, especially if you're at a company that's working with a lot of different IPs? I looked at a bunch of different tools and like far and away, like Layer is better. Also, Burcu is just like crazy active on LinkedIn. I made a status that was not even that popular or highly viewed. And Burcu just like comments right away, hey, I'll give you a sub, like just try the product and see what you think. But it would be great to hear from you more about exactly what Layer is and what your guys' mission is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think several of my friends mentioned you pop everywhere on my feed, but please keep it coming because it's very interesting. So great to hear that like it also grabbed your attention back then. So yeah, my journey with Layer is actually like right about 2 years ago, we started the company and we started with helping mobile game companies generate 2D art assets in their art style. And for us, since day one, it was very, very important that we build the right tooling for artists first or the creatives inside the game company. We believe that like with or without AI, the top games that billions of players enjoy will be coming out of amazing teams that has artists, that has programmers, PM, maybe like leaner teams can create amazing games, but it's still, we believe the future is still artist led. So that was our starting point. And over time, you know, as AI progressed, we saw that the productivity gains or the impact AI is making started also improving. That created a lot more use cases within games and a lot more buy-in from games teams. And we started seeing great improvements in video generations, also in 3D. So we added those to the platform as well and created this suite of tools for games teams. And I would say like Layer, one thing that we want to make sure we remain focused is the games vertical, because that's our background. We are also hiring, but everybody has this background, and we need to continue building focused on our vertical, because we believe instead of horizontal approach, gaming needs a verticalized approach. We also raised some funding recently. I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited about our latest raise of 6.3 million. And yeah, we will talk about like the funds we raised or what did we pay attention when raising and what are next steps for our company later. But I want to leave the mic to Julia for now.
Yes, Julia, we would love to hear more about Series Entertainment. I've been tracking it back when it was still Series AI since the acquisition of Pixelberry, and that you guys have a really interesting partnership and strategic investment from Netflix. So I think totally differentiates how you guys are approaching game making and AI in the market. So I think our audience will be really excited to hear more about exactly how you guys are doing it.
So our company, Series Entertainment, it's all about shaping the future of interactive entertainment through generative technology, which means like we're actually much more focused on the content that we think will be mostly leveraged like this new technology wave. So things like stories, experiences, and worlds. I think what differentiates us from the rest of the market is that our approach is quite unique. So first of all, like we are a bunch of like game veterans, but also technologists, which means that our company's business model is like we value the direct relationship with the end consumer so much. So we're mostly like excited about building game titles or like entertainment experiences. If you're talking about transmedia, like to going like even more broad, like directly. We also think generative technology is kind of the differentiator. So some of them were just leverage like the best of things, toolings like on the market. So for example, I know like Layer is doing a great thing. We're also paying attention. We want to sit on the shoulder of giants, right? On the other side, like we do maintain an AI native team inside. So one, we see that pretty valuable to keep ourselves like always on the frontier of this like technology way because things are happening like every day. And on the other side, we do think in the future, the technology will enable a lot of no matter tooling, workflow, like even agentic workflow to be highly customizable. So, I mean, even internally today, we have things that giving us production ready assets, we call it, right out of the gate. So that like the artists or creators like need very minimum touch because we set up the pipeline for that. At the end of the day, we're product driven. Like we're more excited about providing the engaging, but also like first of its kind experiences. But we also see the generative technology are able to power that from the entire life cycle, from how you build it and like how you're operating, like from a live ops angle. It's another thing like we're pretty interested in.
Yeah. So let me just recap this on your, unique selling point, because that's what we're really talking about in this episode so that the audience can understand the difference. We have people with all different levels of familiarity with AI here. So with Layer AI, you guys are a tool first and foremost. And it's that instead of making your own proprietary models or asking that users have subscriptions across a bunch of different tools that might be anything from concepting, production ready, upscaling, and then animation, you're sort of like this model agnostic platform all in one place, what you might say Adobe does with tools, and focus on the design part. Yes. And then Julia, with Series Entertainment, you're really like primarily making games. And it sounds like the faster iteration loops you can have because everything is faster with AI and you already have this great distribution platform. That's going to be your secret to being able to make and operate games that are overall more plentiful in your portfolio. And through any of your like partnerships, are you maybe looking at the platform that you guys are using? Could be something that you share out, or is it like focused on this platform is for your games that you're specifically making?
I would love to one day perhaps power other engines or other entertainment wheelhouses like Series AI. So there's a world where if we continue to impress Series AI based on what I heard they're watching, if they feel that certain parts of the tech stack can be done better or in a more flexible and more efficient way by Layer, there's a world we power their platform. But obviously, like I see us as a complementary for now. And even if they wanted to go to market with their tooling for other developers, we can also power that platform. But of course, I might be extremely like overexcited here. But yeah, I would love to hear Julia's thoughts.
Amazing. If you guys couldn't tell, Burcu's background is in sales and business.
Likes things. So yeah, I guess like we currently don't have plan to say monetize or make it as doing the business on the developer tooling. This is like primarily power our content creating team, but it's also possibly if any strategic partnership like makes sense to be one of our content strategy where there's a word like we will power that to let's say a second party like or strategic partners.
Oh, okay. Amazing. So I guess we'll just have to stay up to date on what each of you guys are doing. What made you guys decide to make the leap into a company that's focusing on AI? I mean, I know it's like an amazing market with a lot of potential, but I'm wondering, like, do you guys have any interesting early experiences with gaming and AI tools that just made you like really vindicated that you want to combine them in your next company?
Considering like how much art games need, we thought it's a perfect use case for us to take on. games can only scale with more content and, players want that. Marketing demands that. We thought, okay, like this is the perfect place to have AI create generative AI used and create huge efficiencies and potentially new levels of creativity as well. But in order for these promises to happen, one, like the AI quality has to meet the quality bar, and B, artists should be able to use these tools because AI still is very, very technical and not every game's teams member or let alone even large companies sometimes don't have this talent. So whatever tool you're building, like has to bridge that gap between a technical and non-technical person and first make creatives go faster and build better experiences. So yeah, it was an obvious choice for our team.
You don't get a lot of opportunity like this through your entire career. I think the last probably like most impactful way for gaming is mobile, which is a little bit early in my career. So I kind of missed that. But for me, like when I see the power of some of generative models, I just kind of like a clicking on my mind about, oh, there's so much ways. If this technology mature, can change how people think about things, how people actually doing things, and even like how people using tool. Like I always use that analogy internally. This is when you're trying to doing math like manually versus like you have a calculator to give you like no result. So that's evolution, and not even speaking about like the experiences end, right? And also I started my career early on like more of a massive title like League of Legends and Valorant. Those are great games, but they're also like have relatively like huge team behind it. And on one side, we're trying to really maintain creative and fun of the game. But on the other side, like those experiences just require like tons of great talent to work seamlessly, like together. There's a multiple collaborations and the complexities like of the game development. And I always imagine what if some of them like less like creative order work can happen like more effortlessly so that the human time can only be focused on the creative part of work. So when our CEO, Pani, reached out, and obviously we're talking about this new technology when we're backing Snap. And when he reached out about this, I was like, this is exactly feels right to my next journey.
Amazing. Yeah. And Snap is known for kind of being groundbreaking in terms of the AI and like AR filters too. So it sounds like your team was like really well positioned on the tech side. Burcu, also with your career at Unity, like Unity is such a great engine for so many of these experiences, and that they have the 3D like URP pipeline. So it seems like a natural next step, but I am sure like leaving that stability to really go and start something is really hard. So love to understand also like your story of like, when did you decide to really go for it?
Yeah, sure. First of all, like at Unity, I wore many hats. Like I worked in different roles. I worked in ads. I worked in game services, like game backend, analytics, like strategic partnerships, and several new initiatives inside Unity where we took a stab at making indie games teams successful through running monetization and UA and live ops for them. We also then, created a player marketplace offering. Like all this failed, but I got to learn a lot about, game production and scaling cycles. And one fun fact about Layer is like me and Volkan, my co-founder, who is the AI guy who spent around 20 years in AI. He worked at the very first AI startup. We were introduced by a mutual friend, founder of Gram Games, Mehmet. And Gram Games, it was one of the most successful game studios of the past 10 years. First, initially with 1010 and then, Merge Dragons. And the art pipelines, like how heavy it was just like mind boggling. And I think three of us, we wanted to start there. How many dragons, like Merge Dragons, can you imagine? Like it was endless amount of dragons and constantly needing games is so scalable and you like constantly need more outsourcing. Like you're always like your art is a huge bottleneck. Like you can only create so much art. So I think to be very specific, mobile merge, casual merge game art pipelines were the starting point. We started with a few top customers, like Triple Dot was one of our earliest customers who were also making like puzzle games. And we started with like few use cases and very big customers who need a lot of art and who have actually several like large art teams. So yeah, we didn't really focus on like, how can we make indie productive, but we focused on like, how can we make a large organization with several live titles and several different teams productive. So I think that played a significant role in Layer's early success with some of these like large studios.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. And, still bold to leave a company that's like such a cornerstone of gaming. But at the same time, like, I feel like the opportunity is great. And you guys were really like one of the first ones coming out there. And I think similarly with Steve, you guys just snatched up Pickleberry really fast to where I think like many people hadn't quite heard of you yet. And then it was like, wait, this company is already acquiring other studios.
Right.
I think like it's really exciting to see some companies in this market are successful with raising. Like already the AI space in games is getting increasingly crowded. It's really hard to stand out. So I'd love to kind of hear from you guys. How did you really get to where you are today at Series Entertainment and Layer AI? I think with the fundraising focus, especially given Burcu just raised a new round, what really is like the different piece to know if you're coming from gaming and you're like, okay, I really want to go for it with this AI based studio or tool. And what do I need to know about how to approach this differently than in gaming? Because really like the business model is quite different.
Sure. So it is a quiet journey, and we internally will also see like acquiring a different company is a very bold move, but we did it anyway. A lot of our internal like founders are more of a YOLO type, but what our approach like makes sense and also kind of like contribute to our raising result is we are blending the edge cutting like technology, but also with a very practical approach. For example, like we have been working with Netflix, that's like mutual partners, which means that actually bring revenue from our very early stage. Like we're able to making contents with IPs, but also that helps us to focus on developing a lot of our internal capabilities, like on the AI front. Gaming is risky in a lot of ways, and you still need many shots on the goal to be successful. Even the best like gaming studio in the world, they still have like Supercell kill, 70% of like their project in actually quite late stage, right? So I think like we acknowledge that, but we call it climbing mountain. You don't just like shooting for the summit because you haven't seen a path and there's so much risk you might just die one way. Instead, we're finding like what's our the next camp. Like even we have a broader, ambitious like vision about transmedia, about like 3D open world, but we started with 2D narrative games because we know that's where we have the most confidence, like the technology is most ready, and we have the great talent. I think that's step by step, like a practical approach, making our both business mode and story much more like credible in a way. And also in terms of AI gaming, I know it's getting crowded, but my view is it's actually not as crowded as people think. There's still a natural tendency for people to saying it's not ready because like quality wise, it's not ready. There are a bunch of other issues as well. So all the agentic stuff like AI showing greater ability to help like human to accomplish stuff is to us, this is really just a starting point. I deeply believe on various verticals, like gaming, just one of them, there's still like tons of value to see how this technology can be productionized, can be more reliable, can be more trustworthy, can be more safe. Instead of treating this as hard to like use tools, I think there's a tons of work to push it to what we say commercial grade tools so that it can actually be used in various high value cases.
So you're kind of saying you're proving out the use case on your own games. Hey, game teams can use this tool. We're using it to make high quality games already.
We do, but I also want to be very cautious about that because like I think for now it's a great tool. We call like human in the loop because like we think the biggest power it is to relieve human from those repetitive and manual work in the past. And we have seen great like productivity gain from it already.
Yeah. Amazing. And yeah, what about for Layer AI? Because you guys are a bit of a different business, right? Different multiples and valuations being a tool that's B2B.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite differently than Serious Entertainment, like both me and Volkan are first time founders. So like Serious Entertainment founders founded a few companies before. So, I mean, kudos to him. It's a role model. We're like in awe of the team's success and DNA, and we certainly are taking examples. As far as Layer is concerned, we, in 2023, when we were 3 people, when we started the company, we raised this pre-seed round of 1.8 million. And when raising this round, we actually made sure that we have coverage in different geographies around the world and make sure that our investors are coming from a games background like ourselves, as well as ad tech background. So that was very, very important because we knew that one of the core use cases with AI is mobile ads marketing. So I would say like that 1.8 million, we collected small checks from several investors and made sure that that helps with our go-to-market strategy as well in different markets. For example, we work with GFR funds that gave us strategic insights into what Japan thinks or connections to Japanese market. Similarly, like we work with the Games Fund that gave us good insights, introductions to Eastern European market. Me, myself is Turkish. We had the Turkish Laton Ventures, which was a new fund with several successful LPs. So that was very good. Like the first, I would say pre-seed was the hardest. And then this recent round of 6 million, it went easier than the first one, even though it had its own challenges. So for example, when we were raising that pre-seed round of 1.8 million, a lot of the rejections we got was around like, oh, you're not building a foundation model, you're going to die. But we were trying to explain to investors who are also learning because it's all very new and forming their thesis. Hey, the opportunities in the application layer, models are going to get commoditized. And when we said this, like it didn't really resonate because they were thinking like foundation model, like what's your AI DNA? If you don't have a lab, like you're out. We always thought that that's a different game that needs to be played. That's the different level of competition, and like big labs or large companies are best suited to do that. Like, for example, Google is training models, Meta is training models. We never thought that's our game. And in this round, I think it was easier to explain because that mentalities were shifting and the opportunity was obvious on the application layer. One challenge was like they had questions around gaming TAM. And it's understandable if you look at it from just like revenue models around seats or like the revenue models that scale with number of creatives. And yes, there's only certain number of creatives you can sell in games. But then with AI, there's going to be new revenue models or hybrid revenue models appearing, which kind of falsifies the concerns around gaming TAM. Because when you think consumption terms, like imagine layers powering all videos generated for marketing purposes. And that's charged based on number of videos produced each month. And imagine how much spend that is going towards video. Or another example is like, what if we're going B2B2C and power real-time player experiences? That again is a model that scales with number of players in a given game. So I think while I understand the concerns around TAM, I think there's a lot more to unpack there in terms of revenue opportunities that it wasn't a valid concern. And we ended up landing 2 amazing investors who completely get it. And all the ones who didn't get it, that's completely fine. Somebody's loss is somebody else's win. So why not?
Yeah, because you guys have a really famous lead, right? And a new fund that you're one of their very first investments.
Exactly. Akin Babaid's new fund, Arcadia Gaming Advisor, is one of our colleagues, together with Ricardo Zacconi, founder of King.com, the 2 legendary gaming operators and founders. And we couldn't be more thrilled to have landed these 2 amazing, accomplished individuals, and we couldn't be more thrilled to have them join our board. I just can't wait for our next board meeting. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ricardo is great and also hilarious. So I would expect the board meetings actually to be fun. And I think with Akin, the founder of Triple Dot, and Triple Dot is also basically like a great ASO, SEO marketing company for their games. So with your guys' focus on ads, it makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of also hearing, I think a lot of the time when people say betting on a new platform is tough with productivity, they're thinking things like Unity, where, it was really difficult for them to try to redefine their monetization model because a lot of the time the tool just has existed for free. And then there were kind of add-on services with the ads. But I'm hearing from you guys that you really can have this from the very beginning, like pay to play based off of usage. And I think like with the creatives, it's been a really interesting trend that I've seen for AI to do first, because these AI ads are actually performing better than the ones that humans made. And if then they're performing better, well, now a company is looking at that production as a way that they help that's directly tied to revenue growth rather than like it's a cost center.
Absolutely. And it's very, very important, like critical that, we drive value to our customers, therefore not only stay in the cost cutting bucket, because that's not as interesting. Can we make teams like more productive, but also can we increase games LTVs? And once we can do that, like it's going to get easier and easier for game studios to adopt such tooling because they know that, we are in it together. But yeah, I would say as a company with customers from early on, we see this as a very much of a collaborative partnership. Whatever we do it together with our customers. So there are no surprises. And whatever models we're coming up with, we make sure that they're approving these models and that we get their buy-in. This way we kind of de-risk any potential mismatch in expectations because it's a very new space, right? Yeah. So some of the models will be figured out, and it's important to stay close with the users and customers.
Yeah. And I think every time VCs are like, oh, if only you were making models, well, would you like my valuation to be 3 times higher and to give me 5 times as much money? Oh, no? Okay. Well, you're lucky I'm not making models then.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, as 2 co-founders who know their place, like we never optimize this high valuations. We don't think it's needed. Like we much rather focus on like a human valuation and not try to optimize that. And like, it doesn't make sense to optimize for valuation at that stage.
That makes a ton of sense. And, speaking of high valuations, Julia, you guys were able at Series Entertainment to raise, an amazing given the market today for games, and especially with what is, a platform powered content play, because you guys are still making games that are already finding amazing distribution with Netflix. And I think you guys just came out with your first game there. So maybe you could speak more about what are some key decisions that helped you guys define those steps and raise, I think, something like $28 million.
Yeah, I feel like it's also tapping into things that we're talking about. Think like we have a more practical passes over there. It's usually hard to hear like a studio just like 1 year or like 1.5 years old, but already have a game like launched. We launched the first game last December in collaboration with Netflix, and I have a few more slate the future like a few months. And the game actually has a great retention, but it's within Netflix like network, so it's one of their content slate. The users will only care about the experiences as long as you're getting the great experiences. And we have seen like AI are definitely like adding value from various angles. I'm very much agreeing on that. Like a cost, it's usually not the most important thing. It's kind of like a byproduct. Like, yes, we want to save in costs because it allows you to do more things. But at the end of the day, what's important is that it allows your creative teams to be doing more iterations so they can actually like unleash their creative or explore like a broader creative space to find a better version of what they're creating. It's usually give you more shots on the goals. And it's also like removing some, we call it organizational frictions. Imagine previously like someone have an idea or like they might need to creating multiple Jira tickets, asking for our resources and getting scheduled like with a producer, like all of that. Right now, like it's much easier to say, this is what I want. This is what I think makes sense. What do you think, right? So I think like those kind of internal dynamic is what we value most in terms of like early phase of this technology adoption. And in the future, we do expect this being like helping human creators in a much more powerful way. Being able to have a more practical path and show result on each ways. And also like our acquisition for Pixelberry is also kind of like a great proof point that we're able to apply our like technology we built first year to a live product and bring them to a much better places. I think those would be like the cornerstone was for like our future and kind of like setting up and pave the way to the future, like a grand vision, like where we're marching to. And we're really glad to be able to trust by a set of investors like in that vision.
Yeah. And just a disclaimer, models are only going to get better, faster, cheaper. So as you're adopting these tools, please don't worry about cost so much. Like whoever you work with will have to accommodate this like faster, better, cheaper models and build a pricing that makes sense for both sides. So I would focus on like making sure your teams are learning, adopting, regardless of their technical skill level. Like there's something anyone can do with AI and communicate their vision, or you don't know who is the next creative in your team. So I would focus on learning and onboarding with these tools, understanding what you can do with them and not make cost-based decisions because that's going to change.
I would add a little bit caveat on that. If your game is coming out like tomorrow, like calling some commercial APIs, you do need to think about costs. But if your game coming out like a year from now and you're really just trying to leverage that on your like game production or even some like near game experience, the chances are the industry has figured out a lot of ways to optimize like the inferences cost. So the model is probably like much more affordable. Like the last 6 months kind of already proved like a great trajectory on that.
Yeah, that is a great point. I mean, I think already, even just with the most recent GPT models coming out, API credit prices were slashed to a fifth of the cost. It's actually notable when one of these main model providers, like the Anthropic with Claude, didn't lower their API credit cost when they had the new 3.7 Sonnet come out. I think with the trend of kind of like how these things work is that often these new models are just newly trained to increase their capability. And then the second thing that the model provider does is quantize the model and have a faster, cheaper version come out directly after. So it's a continuous pipeline that if you're thinking about building your own models, it's just a lot of effort and it's kind of hard to match the improvements that are coming out from these really big players. But I think that if we're talking about the tools on the market, how really do you evaluate that? And this is something that I've run in at so many companies. It's just, it requires like a totally different set of skills than game makers are used to on just like, how do you know what to use? And when does it make sense to optimize for cost versus like, actually, if it's not giving you the results that you need, it's really like a non-starter in the first place. So before you've made the decision and you've integrated and paid for the like year-long sub or all the API credits, how do you like look at which ones in the market are like the right mix of like usable and the right breadth over enough product use cases?
This is like something our internal team looking at continuously. I would say like it's not that difficult when you have the right talent. When you're saying right talent is someone do have the kind of like the creative taste, which means this person knows what good looks like, but also have certain knowledge on the AI field. It's a little bit different from the traditional tech car, but someone who knows like most of the new AI tools, knows Comfy and like LoRa, like all this stuff. So when they're looking at a new like image model comes out or a new tool or like new system, they're able to quickly evaluate saying, this is getting what I want. This has another superpower like that can make our existing pipeline better than before. So the same thing actually applied to the narrative side, like the 3D side. And also like majority of model today, when they come out, they have APIs. So it's really having the right person like and being easy to test those models. And I believe like every company probably should have their own way to evaluate what quality means. Like some of them are more style, some of them maybe like more controllability, like different ways to evaluate them. And we have a few things we care the most. And we run those like kind of when new model comes out, like we kind of run that process with our internal teams. And we usually get a pretty good read about whether we need to pay attention or that's probably just one of the noises pretty quick.
This is a fantastic summary and it's completely valid for us too. But I'm going to approach this from a completely different angle, which is because a lot of large companies and every game company really cares about keeping their IP safe. So as an application which allows a connection to several different foundational models in 2D, 3D, and video, what we do typically is if we're going to add a model to our platform, it is critical that they align with our data protection terms and they sign our vendor undertaking agreement. What does it mean? It means that whichever model we add to the platform follows similar practices to Layer's promise. Therefore, as a game studio, the legal team approve one terms of service, which is Layer's master terms of service. And we are in charge of making sure everything is compliant. And also, it's very critical that game studios don't need to procure different models each time there's a model update, because there's a new model every other month. If legal teams have to procure these models separately, they need to stop everything and try to follow this. So it is something that I think every game studio need to pay attention to, like that none of their data goes into like model training, or it is ensured that their data is safe. So they can be working with tools directly. Also, like they may choose to not work with Layer, but go to models directly for maybe several reasons. You need to ensure that you opt out of such training on your data.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think also if you guys can maybe just explain some of the terms that you use for the audience. So there's on one side, Burcu is saying, hey, like you can just work with a provider and they worry about all that stuff for you. And then you don't need to be going to specific point solutions or worry about the data side. At the same time, it sounds like Julia is saying, you know, if this is like a really big piece of your business, you might want to look at actually fine tuning your own models with your art style but really make sure you have a person there that understands that piece of it and that you have an evaluation framework in place. And, you know, I've been at a company that was trying to use Stable Diffusion for all of their training. And yeah, that it works in like a prototyping sense. But as soon as you're trying to do something production ready, that's quite difficult. So I also heard Julia, you mentioned LoRa. That's like a PEFT method, which is like parameter efficient fine tuning. You also mentioned Comfy. Do you want to explain a little bit for the audience? If you just know, hey, like Stable Diffusion, it's open source, so I can make sure my data is safe and I understand all the model weights. Really, what's like the next step in your thinking there when you're envisioning like a production ready tool partner?
I would say like we don't have a strong preferences on the open source and closed source. It's really like whichever is the best. Like I think there was a moment that like commercial models, it's like closed source models are more ahead, but we also see like the open source ones are catching up pretty quick. So to explain a little bit, like Stable Diffusion, especially SDXL, is we call like more of a vanilla models that you can use a base. That's open source. It's I believe training was mostly like a public available, no copy issue like stuff data. And then you can train that model with your own like assets. So which basically is a LoRa, which is added like weights to the base model and produce like a specific style or based on the inputs we are giving them. So Comfy UI is another thing. So pretty interesting. This we find is very, very valuable because it's basically allow you to design a workflow like has like multiple steps. Because like when you're getting more production ready assets, like you kind of need a more higher control, and the Comfy UI give you different nodes to do different things. So there are things called like control net, which is giving you the ability to saying like the shape or like the composition of the image you really want. Some of them allow you to adjust the lighting, and some of them give you some like depth map. There is even more artistic like expert things that I'm not like fully comprehend. But for example, one of our production pipelines might have 20, 30, or even 50 like Comfy workflows to be able to produce something are almost immediately like usable in a game.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That is like such a great 2-minute explanation of so many things that took me a while to learn. So I know you need to run in a minute here. Is there any like kind of final things that you want to tell the audience about advice that you have for game makers or those curious about AI, or, you know, if there's anyone curious about series, how they should get into contact with you?
For any audience, I would have two kind of advices. One is that really keep an open mind. I feel like a lot of things is coming out and you're trying to try it, just see how it works. And sometimes it might work for you, but it might not. But the keep an open mind at least allow you to absorb like those information. And second thing I personally find is really valuable is to get hands-on. So a lot of things I hear about it and you're personally trying it is very different. And especially if you're already, like expert on certain areas, you probably have a great context on how this tool can help you than the other people, or even then the people are like developing it because they don't have like the industry like context you already have. So try it with that open mind. Like you probably will see a lot of like opportunities that the other people might not be able to see. At the end of the day, I'm great to join this like podcast and then to talk about an AI and gaming. And I just in generally like hope like we'll have more and more great talent, especially like female talent joining in here.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much for coming on. I learned a lot. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Burcu, for agreeing to stay on with us for a few more minutes to answer some more questions more about the future of AI. I think a lot of these new startups are really playing like 4D chess by trying to see not what is AI today, but what will it be in the future and a year from now. So I know some people are talking about what is the next like AI Unity or AI Adobe look like? Will games be entirely generated by AI? So I'd love to understand like what might be your like spicy hot take on the types of asset generation tools that are really going to have staying power for the next 5 years. Other than Layer, of course.
I love the question, what is AI Unity or AI Adobe? Like what a spicy question. So, I mean, let me take a stab at answering this. So first of all, I think there is already Unity and there's already Adobe and they're integrating AI into their suite of tools, and they should. These companies have been around for a long time and it's only expected that they're going to be around for longer. They're going to have their own ways of integrating AI to make their tools better or their users' experience better, and they should. This is very similar to when the GUI came along. So when GUI came along, Adobe capitalized on this opportunity and built this amazing suite that they had. Similarly, we see generative AI as the new GUI, graphical user interface for long. And we see AI as the new GUI. So we believe that AI native experiences need to be built. New interfaces are needed. Even though old interfaces will integrate some AI, we believe that better opportunities, better experiences can be unlocked with net new tooling. And we hope that we can stay at the forefront of that. We can be that company like Adobe once was in the past. And in terms of where this is all going, I think we still see that like humans will stay at the forefront of this technology, like humans will be using these tools. There is a world where this NPC came out recently, like using a Blender creates meshes, or, then somebody else posted this like fun post, like an NPC using Unity. So we are also thinking around those lines, like, is there going to be agents, assistants that are helping us use these tools or use entire tech stacks for gaming that help these tools talk to each other or connect with each other, that severely accelerates game production or scaling or game personalization. Yeah, we are very excited about that feature, but we don't think it's going to happen like tomorrow. I think we will all collectively get there and humans will stay in control. We'll have to stay in control for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Are you talking about the paperclip paradox now?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, there's actually a game out there that is about an AI paperclip factory. And I love this. Oh my gosh, I wish I remembered the name of it, but it's basically that you're creating a bunch of paper clips. And so it's like an idler and you want to get more efficient at creating them. And then you realize you need to liquidate all of these buildings and all of these things into paper clips. And then by the end of the game, you realize actually you're an AI. And because you were given the goal of optimizing paper clips, just like the whole world is paper clips now, including the people.
Wow, that game must be trending. Like, how many organics I wonder they're getting on a daily basis.
So I guess I'm hearing to have this like self-creating, hyper-personalized video game. We're still a ways away from that. What do you think is really missing there?
Yeah, like I sometimes get this, people ask me like, oh, like there's going to be like the AI making games, or like their promises, their companies or startups trying like focusing on that segment. Like I personally am like, I don't want to say zero excited, but not very excited about AI making games, because will AI also monetize the game or scale the game? And, then why do we even exist? So I'm very excited about humans making games, or like small teams making big games, and more around those premises. I'm also very much like the probably most extroverted human first person ever. So I'm zero excited about like have AI make the games. And, we all, I guess, stop what we're doing and die or cry. So I'm and different people that can have different opinions, but yeah, this is my opinion.
Yeah. So human in the loop is here to stay.
Human in the loop always.
Hopefully. Or else something went seriously wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for my robots doing my laundry, but I'm not excited about AI making the entire game like without humans.
Mm-hmm. And I just looked up the game. So it's called Universal Paperclips, and it's on decisionproblem.com. So it's a browser game, and you guys can try it and see what happens when AI creates the games.
What's the name of the company? Maybe let's do a shout out to them, so some additional users.
Yes, so it's Decision Problem, and decisionproblem.com/paperclips.
Perfection. Good job, team.
As we wrap up, what's your last advice that you have for game makers or those curious about AI out there? Like, how can they really get started, and how does that look different from is they're wanting to break out into their own studio versus maybe they work in a larger company and they just feel, they're not really hitting that opportunity space yet, and they want to be one of the ones really bringing it forward into the company workflows?
The top studios adopted AI and seeing all this like massive productivity gains is like the key difference that they had from somebody who hasn't adopted yet or hasn't been productive is that they were very proactive about it. These tools don't teach themselves. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to sign up. Like you have to try the different tools. If you don't want to spend that like R&D time, or if you spend that time, but I cannot keep up, etc., you can always work with like tools like Layer and, try to like leverage different types of models like 2D, 3D video and try to create with it, have a sense for it. And you can also use tools like Layer, like content production tools like Layer along with LLMs, like Gemini Flash is doing a good job. I think AI gets AI better. So it can help, like LLMs can also help you find better use cases or better ways to prompt to leverage these tools. So while we're building all this inside Layer, the reality today is like you may want to take advantage of external LLMs to help you with that. And one mistake I see that's happening is being scared of it and not being on board with it. I think that's probably the worst thing that can do to yourself, because this technology is powerful. It's here. It's already making a lot of teams productive. I understand the fears around, job security, etc., because, industry went through really hard times, like a lot of layoffs. But I can assure you, like when studios realize or talent realizes of what they can, all the experience they can create with AI, there's going to be ultimately like more projects to work on. So even though industry went through difficult times, and not because of AI, it was like the, post-pandemic inflation that resulted in, several studios closed down or, budget cuts, etc. I believe there's going to be many more projects to work on that hopefully we're going to start seeing some like positive trends around new projects coming out. And Tiffany, maybe you're observing this better. You're the big picture girl. I'm very like focused on Layer at home. But yeah, there's going to be more projects, more investments. Hopefully the talent will like go work on these projects, and leveraging AI can create like new, better projects. So I would say get on it, get started with it instead of, oh, should I do this? Should I not do this? There's already several tools that allows you to custom train your style, multiply your powers. All this can be, happening in a private, secure workspace. So you're not really contributing to training of these like base models. Like you can already use tools like Layer along with Photoshop and Unity and Unreal. So the biggest mistake is not getting on board with it. And that's probably a waste of time.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I know there's been some criticism of AI's impact so far to justify all of this investment. I think Philip Black, a deconstructor fund, is a bit popular for saying that so far we haven't really seen the impact of AI on gaming. But at the same time, when I look at it, like AI is a big time saver right now, mainly for teams in the design time and in part with the runtime. But there's not yet a lot of like net new functionality that's broken out of gaming. But at the same time, this means like human in the loop is still really important. So I don't think that we can expect to have a game come out totally AI generated and it's like one of the top grossing games, right? It's going to look a lot more subtle. Like how quickly can teams get out games? If the budget for the game is lower, does that mean the team can take more creative risks instead of this just, like 10% new? What if we had more games that were, 30 or 40% new? Because then the team had 4 games they could make instead of 2. So then I think you really hit it. What's the realistic expectation for how AI can really impact the gaming industry?
Absolutely. And working with some of the largest game studios out there, we only see that management of these companies are only interested in increasing the outputs from their existing teams. They very much like love and respect their artists. Finding great artists or creative teams is the hardest thing in the world. So I think the top game companies are completely aware. They're just very excited about like increasing the output of their talent. A great example would be like LBC Studios. The LBC Studios is a small studio from Vancouver. We've been collaborating with them I think since the beginning of Layer. And they already had a game called Brewtopia. And Brewtopia trained custom styles with Layer. So their libraries became like infinite asset machines. So their creative teams using Layer created a lot of personalized experiences inside the game, new levels, new characters. And over time, they decided to launch a new game. And this time it's around mushrooms and it's called Shroomtopia. So they were able to quickly create a new version of the same game, following the same art style, using exactly the same libraries. So this meant that they didn't need to change anything or do anything different than they already did for the previous game and ship a game much, much faster. So this is a great example of how can you leverage your existing libraries or existing artists to do more or different version of same game. And even that itself is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. I mean, having a split code base, it really decreases your time to market, especially if you think you're working with IPs. So I think for a lot of casino games where the IP is the main differentiator, this makes a ton of sense. And hybrid casual is the new hyper casual. And for things like this, I think the production quality and the speed is really well positioned for AI. And I also think a lot of the successes where AI is a lever in that with these larger companies, they might not be publicizing it. So it's a lot more common to be using it than we might think, because no one really wants to say, hey, this was a key differentiator for us until they kind of have their own tools. And even I know before that if you have a game with an IP, AI was a big sensitivity because of possible liability. But I know Layer has BRIA and certain models where they're entirely licensed already. So I think there's a ton of ways that you can limit your risk as long as you're realistic about the effort that's required to be successful with AI tools in gaming and what your initial gains are going to be versus the long-term gains you might have in the future for being first in this new tool.
Absolutely. And I think, game companies have all the rights to approach this with care and diligence and really learn before they jump on it. And it is fair because AI is still very new and these models, how they're trained, etc., the regulations around that is still to follow. So I think while being careful is good, not adopting is a mistake. So I think there's a fine line between being extra cautious and cautious. So I think companies need to form their guidelines and policies around AI and really stick to that. And we see that as a best practice within our top customers rather than, let's do it with everything or every way. I think that's a bit too broad and it's fair to not do that and have guidelines established for the way they want to use AI.
Yeah. So you focus on kind of like starting small where you can preserve quality.
Correct.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much, Burcu, for coming on. It's amazing for me to see that I think these new AI tools are really like more women led than I would be expecting. And that I think we have more women in gaming AI that are like front and center of the movement than I often see represented proportionally within just gaming or just within AI. So I feel really proud that like we could have two amazing femme founders on, and I'm really passionate about the space from my time at Gameforge. And I guess to close, is there a way that anyone who's curious about this can get in touch with you, Burcu, and learn more about Layer AI or just how to fold these different tools into their workflow?
Yeah, so our website, layer.ai, just contact us via our landing page and we'll get right on it. Tiffany, it was a pleasure being on this podcast with you. You're such a badass, amazing leader that I am just privileged to be on same thought leadership piece with you. So we should do this more. Hopefully, like we'll have even more learnings and case studies and announcements to share with you when we come together next.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Looking forward to it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. You got to the end of the episode of Rise and Play, Unpacking AI and Finding Your Unique Selling Point within Asset Generation. So thanks for listening and feel free to reach out with more questions.
Rise and Play.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Rise and Play podcast. We keep growing our community of conscious leaders across the industry and beyond. If you want to join this movement, please share the podcast with other conscious leaders, because we have so much more we can learn from each other. And if you want to accelerate your growth, I offer creative leadership coaching and workshop, plus other free resources that you can find on riseandplay.io. I can't wait to connect with you. Have a great week, and remember to take care of yourself. Until the next time,